Hello everyone, I'm Marcy. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is part of the 2024 Halloween Journal Challenge, hosted for the 7th year now by Kia Creates. And I'm making an art journal spread for the prompt Friendly Ghosts for day 14. What's on the screen now is what I'll be making, so if you like it, stick around for some inspiration. I'll be doing this in this Halloween art journal that I made last year. And the spread that I did for this challenge last year was also kind of the inspiration for what I'm doing now. I made this coffee shop themed spread, and after I was done I thought, oh, it would have actually been really cool if we could have opened that up and looked inside. So this year I'm doing another haunted house kind of thing, but this one opens up. I picked a very empty spread for this because from the start I was pretty sure I was going to cover it up entirely. So we're on the back of a slight misprint of my October zine. To start with, I made a pretty simple house template with some windows that flips open, and I traced it onto this sheet that has some leftover paint on it. I was gonna make a tag with that, but it's kind of perfect for this. And if you're doing this with me, this doesn't need to be strong paper or anything because we'll be sticking lots of stuff on there and it'll be pretty firm when we're done. If you want to make a house template like this, it's easiest to fold the paper in half twice. First to make the shape of the house itself symmetrical, and then the second time for the placement of the windows and stuff. You can draw one half and then fold it in half and hold it up to a window to trace it onto the opposite side, if that makes sense. I had also curated a big pile of interesting papers that I thought I might use for this, because this spread is basically mostly a collage. My idea was to use some patterned papers to make a basic living room for the little ghosts to live in. I also have this couch that fits really nicely behind the windows and a little television, but you can use whatever you've got or whatever you'd like to make for it. And by the way, the papers I'm using as wallpaper in here are by Tim Holtz. They're from this year's collection and they're called Halloween Backdrops, I believe. They're very pretty. By the way, a handy tip, if you're gluing stuff onto something that has to fold later, it's good to stay a little bit away from the crease, just to make it a little easier. You may also want to paint the crease itself black, like I did. You'll see me doing that again around the windows in a little bit. I'm tracing my house template directly onto the pattern to make sure everything will fit exactly, though because I'm also adding that black trim again, it's not going to be a big deal if it doesn't fit exactly. Which is nice, because this is a hobby. I don't want to be too perfectionistic about it. Everything I'm doing here is pretty simple, but one thing to pay attention to is the order of gluing things down. I want to put little cross shapes in the windows, and I'm going to make those a little bit bigger than they need to be so that I can put glue on the ends and easily stick it in between the house and the wallpaper. That way those ends are covered up and you'd never know. Here I'm putting some more black ink on an edge just to make sure there aren't any little white gaps in between those pieces of cardstock. Look at this cute pattern on the back, by the way. I wanted to go dark, but this would have been an adorable wallpaper as well. And with that, my entire house is covered. I love these patterns and would absolutely put them on my walls. With the basics of the house done, I decided to work on the garden for a bit. And I didn't really have a plan beyond having this gigantic pumpkin, so I didn't keep it in the video, but I spent a pretty long time curating pieces of paper to make the garden with. And ultimately, this is what I landed on. Don't you love that moon? I didn't want those leaves to be gray though, so I grabbed some alcohol markers and just went in and colored them in the colors that would fit into the spread. I think I mentioned this last year too, but don't discount the power of markers for making your papers fit together. It's quick and easy. I didn't think watching me glue things down would be all that interesting, so I cut most of that out. But at this point I stuck in the background layer and trimmed it down. I'm also periodically folding the spread close to reinforce that fold, because I was really pushing it by the end of it. But I made it work. So do you see that interesting textured piece on the bottom right? I picked that to basically be the grout between some stones, and that's what's next. I mixed a medium warm gray color and started painting some messy ovals all over this piece of paper. And then I mixed in some black to make it a bit darker and painted a shadow line along the bottom of each of them. These were all very simple techniques with a really fun outcome, which by the way is also what I'm hoping to give you here. Because obviously you won't have the exact same materials that I do, but I'm hoping to leave you with some ideas and techniques for your own journals. I had quite a bit of paint left when I was done with my floor texture, so I used that to paint the roof on my house. I figured it was an easy way to make sure they'd match. That painted pattern needed a bit more time to dry, so I decided to decorate the inside of the house a bit more. Firstly with a little painting. I used one of my own stickers from last year's Halloween collection, and I often do use my own because it's easier to stick down a sticker when you know you've got another one somewhere. And I'm putting another sticker from the same sheet inside of this tiny TV, but I'll be finishing the frame first. And there it is. Pretty cute. This TV though, that gave me trouble, because I really wanted a little television across from the couch. But I quickly realized it had to be either really low down or it would be visible through the window on the outside. I was gonna give up on it, but then my husband said I could just make something that would flip up. And that was brilliant. So now I'm going to put a pattern on the back of it so that it looks like a little rug on one side and then it flips up to view the television. But first a little intermission with me putting framing on the windows, because I realized that I wouldn't be able to put that on top of the tape later. This is also where I found out that this Tim Holtz paper doesn't like paint markers, so I pulled out this matte acrylic paint from Paper Artsy, and that worked perfectly. And then I finally stuck in the little rug. This is basically just a very small tip-in. It has tapes on both sides, and it's really fun. I like that it's interactive. And if you keep a scrapbook, I think a little house like this is such a fun way to incorporate some photos. Now we're going back to the garden. And I wanted to show you the face I was putting on this jack-o'-lantern, but I quickly realized this isn't actually visible on camera. I'm sorry about that. But when it comes to these faces, just some circles, triangles, and squares will get you pretty far. Mine got a pretty big smile, as you can just about see here. You'll notice me putting some nice yellow paper behind it. Don't get attached to that, it's not staying. And I also cut the pumpkin in half just to protect the crease in the middle. Because even with all these precautions, it's getting kind of mad at me now. I finally glued in the house at this point and started drawing and painting some more details onto that. Most importantly, I grabbed a brown marker and added a little drop shadow onto a lot of things, which is another simple technique that can add a lot of depth. At this point, it's finally time for the ghosts. I used that couch to measure how big my ghosts were supposed to be, and then sketch them on a little piece of paper. And the handy part of this is, if one of them doesn't turn out, I can just get rid of them. Which did happen. I made a ghost for the garden that didn't make it in. So this separate piece of paper thing is a nice way to have a bit less pressure. But yeah, I cut these guys out and did my best to position them in such a way that they were visible from outside the windows. It's all getting cozy now, don't you think? I clearly did, you can tell by the happy hands. So here's that third ghost. It has a knife because it's carving the big pumpkin. And I kept the little pieces I cut out of the eyes and mouth of that, because I wanted to be realistic and put the pumpkin guts off to the side. This is also when I realized I felt that the left side was a little too empty. So I cut a tree silhouette out of some black cardstock. I was hesitant to cover up the moon, but I do ultimately think that this frames the scene really nicely. This is also when I noticed the pumpkin wasn't drawing any attention anymore, because the ghost's brighter, so I brightened that up with a yellow marker. And that also leads us into sort of the final stage of the spread, which is adding the fun little details, starting with a leaf garland that I'm putting on the house. Right now I'm just waving my hand around because I'm picturing what I'm gonna do. Do you guys do that? And then I decided to put a big curve in the middle. I cut most of this out because I figure it's kinda boring to watch me do the same leaf a million times, but I did add a second color. I also added a bit more shading to the house and put string lights in the tree, because how could I not? It can be lights or fireflies or stars, but I need some little sparkly bits that just make things magical, don't you think? After that I added a little pattern to the roof of the house and also one to the little rug. I think just because I wanted to pull some yellow to that side for balance. And then our very final thing is another leaf garland on the inside. Here are some final shots of the completed spread. Let me know what you think. And if I inspired you to make something, I'd love for you to show me. You can tag me on Instagram. But if you want more inspiration, there are daily prompts and videos for the challenge. I'll put a link to all of that in the description, so definitely check those out as well. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and happy crafting!